Imagine this. You wake up, sit down on your desk, and 3 hours later, you've done more for your business than most coaches do in an entire week. You scripted your next video, you followed up with your leads, you have onboarded a new client, and it's not even noon. And you're not ending the day wondering where time went. Now, I want you to think about how that's possible. Because it's not about discipline or motivation. It's not about waking up at 4 a.m. and torturing yourself into being productive with some crazy long morning routine. Look, I've tried all of that, and I can tell you from experience that brute forcing your way through a 14-hour day is not a business strategy. It's just suffering with a calendar. Last month, my business generated $112,000. And I work maybe 4 to 5 focused hours a day. And I'm not saying this because I'm some productivity freak or because I have some superhuman ability to focus, but because at some point I stopped trying to do more and I started building systems that do the work for me. And in this video, I want to show you the 5 things that actually changed how I work. And these are the principles I use myself and the same ones I help every coach and consultant I work with implement in their business. Because if you're anything like the coaches I talk to, you're not struggling because you're lazy or undisciplined. You're struggling because nobody ever taught you how to manage your time correctly. But before we get into the 5 principles, I want to make something clear. This video is not about helping you work more hours. I don't want you to finish watching this video and think, okay, I need to add more stuff to my day. That's not the point. It's actually the opposite. The point is to help you get more done in less time so that you can actually enjoy the business you're building instead of being owned by it. Here's what I see happening with a lot of coaches. They're busy all day. Seriously, like from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they're doing something. Whether it's answering DMs, jumping on calls, creating content, or doing client delivery, they're always doing something. And yet, at the end of the week, they look back and think, did I actually move my business forward this week? Or did I just stay busy? And I know that feeling pretty well because I've made the same mistake for a long time. You know, just staying busy for the sake of being busy. So the problem is not that you're not working hard enough. The problem is that you're being productive in the wrong direction. You're putting a lot of effort into things that feel important but aren't actually moving the needle. And that's what we're going to fix today. Because once you apply these principles, the same hours you're already working start producing completely different results. You don't need more time. You just need a better system for the time you already have. All right, let's get into it. The first principle is what I call the 80-20 rule. And if you've never heard of it, it's also known as the Pareto principle. And the idea is simple. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, which means that 80% of what you're doing every day is probably not moving the needle as much as you think it is. And look, I know it sounds harsh, but think about it for a second. You're a coach doing 10K a month. There are probably 2 or 3 things that are directly responsible for that revenue. The calls you take, the content that converts, and the offer you sell. Everything else, like the admin stuff, the emails, the random tasks that fill up your day, that's the 80% of that's producing almost nothing. And I realized this about myself a few years ago because I was doing everything. I was answering every email personally, I was handling everything manually, and I was spending hours on tasks that had nothing to do with growing my revenue. And I genuinely thought that I was being productive because I was always busy. Then I sat down one day and I asked myself one simple question. If I could do 3 things today, what would they be? And I wrote them down and I realized that those 3 things were the only things that actually mattered, and everything else I was doing was just noise. So I decided to cut the noise or delegate it, and my output didn't go down. It actually went up. It actually skyrocketed. That's because I stopped spreading myself across everything and I started going all in on the things that actually move the needle. And if you want to take this even further, and not a lot of people do this, here's what you can do. Once you've identified your 20%, you can apply the rule again. So of those things, what's the 20% of that? You know, because what you'll find is that there are probably 1 or 2 activities in your business that are responsible for the majority of your results. For me personally, it comes down to 2 things, which is creating content that attracts the right people and getting on calls with those people. And that's it. Everything else in my business exists to support those 2 things. So figure out what those two things are and protect them like your business depends on it, because it actually does. Now, the second principle is something that completely changed how I think about time, and it's called dollar per hour rate. And the idea is simple. Every hour of your time has a value, and anything you're doing that's below that value is costing you money, not saving it. Let me give you a concrete example so you can understand. Let's say your business does 10K a month. So you work roughly 160 hours a month. That means that your time is worth $62 an hour. Now, if you're spending 2 hours a week doing admin, scheduling, bookkeeping, or any other task that you could pay someone to do for like 15 or 20 bucks an hour to do, you're not saving money, you're actually losing money. Because those 2 hours could have gone towards a sales call, or a piece of content that brings in a new lead, or you could have built a system that generates revenue while you sleep. And I made this mistake for a long time. I was doing everything myself because I thought I was saving money, handling my own emails, doing my own scheduling, managing things that had nothing to do with growing the business. And I told myself that it was fine because I was on top of everything. But what I was actually doing was trading high value hours for low value tasks and wondering why I never had enough time to work on the things that actually mattered. So the moment I started outsourcing the stuff below my hourly rate, everything changed because I got my time back, and I put that time towards that 20% that we talked about, and that helped me move my business forward. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to calculate your dollar per hour rate right now and take your monthly revenue divided by the hours of work that you do in a month, and that number is the floor. Anything below it just gets delegated or you automate it, because your time is something that you cannot get back, and every hour you spend on the wrong things is an hour you're not spending on the right ones. The third principle is one of the simplest things I've ever implemented, and it made a bigger difference than almost anything else, and it's this: attack your most important work first. Now, most people wake up, check their phones, answer a few DMs, scroll through Instagram for a bit, and then wonder why by the time they sit down to do actual work, they have no energy left for it. And I've done the same thing, I've made the same mistake. Here's what I realized. The first 2 to 3 hours of your day are the most valuable hours, because your brain is fresh, you haven't been pulled in 10 different directions yet, and you have the most mental clarity that you're going to have all day. So what you do with those hours matters more than anything else you do for the rest of the day. So I wake up and the first thing I do is I attack my 20%, the stuff that we talked about in principle 1, the 2 or 3 things that actually move my business forward. That's what gets my best hours. So content first. If I have a script to write, that happens before anything else. Before I check my emails, before I check my DMs, before I do anything else, because creative work needs a clear head. And you're not gonna have that at 4 p.m. after a full day of work and calls and messages. Then after I do my content, I take my calls. And then I do everything else. The low effort stuff, the emails, the admin, the messages, I do that later in the day because my mental energy is lower during that time anyway. And that work doesn't require the same level of focus than the other 2 things like doing content and taking calls require. I've been running my day like this for a while, and the result is that I finish my work before other people even figure out what to do for the rest of the day. By the time they wake up, I've already done the most important things for my business. And it's a very simple trick, but simple doesn't mean easy, because that temptation of checking your phone and start scrolling is real, and it's automatic, and you do it without realizing it. So my advice is, if you don't have the willpower to avoid scrolling when you wake up, I suggest that you turn off your phone the night before and you use a real alarm clock, like an actual physical alarm clock, to wake you up. And that will definitely help you stop scrolling in the morning. And you just have to decide that your best work gets your best hours, and everything else can wait. You can do everything else later. The fourth principle is about killing procrastination, and specifically procrastination around content, because in my experience, that's the one thing that coaches put off more than anything else. I get it, because content creation is art. It requires work, creativity, and mental energy. And when you're already tired from a day of calls and client work, sitting down to write a script or record a video is like, the last thing that you want to do. So you put it off, and then you put it off again. And before you know it, it's been 2 weeks since you posted anything, and your pipeline starts to dry up. And I used to do this all the time. I'd have a video to script, and I'd find every reason to not start. I do anything else like clean my desk or make myself another coffee or check my phone and start scrolling. Then I tell myself that I would do it tomorrow because, when I felt more inspired. And the problem is that when tomorrow comes, you never feel more inspired. And then I came across this concept, and it's called the Zeigarnik effect. I think it's pronounced like this, I'm not sure. But it's a very simple concept. And it says that an incomplete task is easier to finish than one you haven't started yet. It's because your brain wants to naturally complete things it's already begun. And that's because the hardest part, if you think about it, is never finishing the work, but it's actually starting. Starting is always the hardest part. That's what procrastination is. You put off starting things. That's what I did. I stopped trying to sit down and write a full script. Instead, I just open a doc, write one line and then close it. That's it. I would just write one line or the title or a couple sentences. But that's it, just a little bit, just to get started. And the interesting thing is that once I start and I just write one line, I tell myself, okay, I'm gonna start writing one line and that's it. But when I start, I actually don't wanna stop. I actually wanna keep going because the hard part is always starting. So once you start, you want to keep going. It's interesting how the mind works, but it actually worked for me. So you can try it. You can see if it works for you. But I think it's a very interesting concept. But this is what you can do. You can open a Google Doc, write one line, and then you can leave it like that. Then the next day, when it's time to do your deep work, you get back on it. It's not going to feel like something you need to start right now. It's just going to feel like something that you already started and you need to finish. I don't know, it's weird, but it works and it's a good trick for your brain. Try it and let me know if it works for you. Okay, now the fifth and last principle is the one that ties everything together, and it is to build a not to do list. And I know it sounds like some stupid or very simple advice, but I promise you that a lot of people don't do this and it's costing them more than they realize. And here's the thing, every yes to say to something in your business is a no you're saying to something else. Every yes you say to a low value client is a no you're saying to the right client. And the concept is that you have limited amount of time and energy every single day. And the not to do list is how you protect that time and that energy. Like, for example, I have a not to do list, and for example, I don't take calls without pre-qualifying people, because I've learned that unqualified calls are one of the biggest time drains in a coaching business. You spend 30 or 45 minutes with talking to someone who's never gonna buy, and that time is just wasted. You're never gonna get it back. Or for example, I don't do same-day content. Like, I never sit down and create content the same day and then publish it on the same day. I have a day for recording, and then I schedule all my content for the next week. Because I know that if I create content the same day and then edit it the same day and then publish it the same day, I'm not going to be able to keep up with it, and I'm going to burn out, and eventually I'm going to give up. So your not to do list is going to be a little bit different from mine, but the concept is always the same, and the way you build it, it's always the same. You need to look at everything you're currently doing and ask yourself honestly, does this need to be done? Does it need to be done by me? And does it need to be done now? And if the answer to any of those is no, then it goes on the list. So those are the 5 principles: the 80-20 rule, the dollar per hour rate, attack your most important work first, and the Zeigarnik effect, and the not to do list. And look, none of these are complicated. You probably understood all of them in about 30 seconds. But understanding something and actually implementing it are two very different things. Most people read stuff like this or watch videos like this, they think, yeah, that makes sense, they nod along, but then they go back to doing exactly what they were doing before. Don't be that person. I made the same mistake in the past, but if you actually want things to change, you need to apply these principles now, like as fast as you can. And you don't need to apply all of them at once, because that could be overwhelming. You can start with one, apply for like a month, and then you can apply the next one for the next month, and so on and so forth. So that's it. Hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.